Joining us now, host of Puff's The Powers That Be podcast and host of Snapchat's Good Luck America, Peter Hamby, and executive editor of The Nation, John Nichols, is here at the table with me. Tim Miller is still with us, too. John, President Trump has created a dynamic that Democrats feel will propel voters their way in the midterms. Do you see that momentum here? And was Iowa?
Oh, I think there's a dynamic that's propelling voters, but I don't think it's propelling voters toward the Republican side. It is clearly having an influence in a lot of these upper Midwest states, moving things toward a place where the Democrats are viable. They're not guaranteed because some of these states like Iowa have been now pretty much a decade on the Republican side. And so there's a lot of work to do. You've got to rebuild coalitions. You've got to bring new voters in. But the interesting thing about what's happening in Iowa is that you have on the Democratic side, young candidates who are, tech savvy. They know how to communicate. And also they are willing to communicate with a knowledge of what's happened over the last decade or so in Iowa. They aren't saying, oh, yeah, we used to be a Democratic state. They're saying, we know that this state has not been voting for Democrats for a while. And so we know we've got to talk to some Republicans. If you saw Rob Sand, who is the gubernatorial nominee, right after the primary, he was up with a video saying, if you're not satisfied with the results of the Republican primary, come and check me out. And that is a very different kind of politics. It's almost like leveling with people.
What do you think has made Rob Sand kind of spook Republicans? So, beyond just his strength polling, but just who he is and what he represents. Do you think it's sort of he's figured out, he's sort of cracked this code in a state where Democrats lost a lot of cultural cachet, where there was this feeling that they were sort of elitist and out of touch with what regular Iowans actually needed. Is it just that he kind of walks and talks like the rest of them, and he's sort of genuinely a part of sort of the fabric of their state, or is it something else that he's doing and offering them that is opening a door?
There's a couple of things going on here. First and foremost, he beat him already, right? Yeah. He's the one Democrat who's won statewide when the Republicans were winning. So they know he knows things. He knows how to do this. But the second thing is that he has not offered I don't think he's taken a lot of talking points from Washington. I think he knows Iowa well enough to build a campaign that is genuinely rooted in what's happening. He's quick on his feet. He moves off the news. If something happens, he responds to it well. But then at the end of it, I think he recognizes something that Democrats in general recognize in Iowa. And I've been in the state a number of times. And that is that the tariffs, the closing of rural hospitals, the sort of seeming neglect of the middle of America on a whole bunch of fronts has opened up a conversation. And he's clearly not saying, oh, come do what I tell you to do. He's more like saying, hey, I noticed you would like to sit down and talk. Let's do it. That is a very good kind of politics.
Yeah. Tim, I want your big picture thoughts on sort of what you read from the results last night, not just out of Iowa, because it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think for the Democrats, positively mixed bag, but still, you have some progressive wins. You then have the sort of strength of the establishment story coming out of Iowa. Is this one of these cases where it is just a reminder of the sort of big tent structure being an advantage to the Democratic Party moving forward, and they can run people who are specific to the place in which they live and that they want to represent? Or do you see something that sort of tells you about the messages that are working with Democrats overall that do apply across the board?
Yeah. Well, look, it's a big country. Things are going to be work differently in different places. Obviously, state elections and city elections. I'll defer to Peter on what's happening in California. There are a lot of management issues that come to the forefront, versus in these national Senate and House elections where this is a lot about fighting Trump and a lot about challenging his policies and offering a different view, particularly on economics, that's more responsive to people's concerns. And so I think there you do see a trend throughout the country in what types of candidates are winning. It's not necessarily across the left-right divide, but it's been more on the Democratic side of who can demonstrate that they have the backbone to fight Trump and who has a clear message about the economic problems facing the country. And I thought one of the more interesting races last night was a little House race in Montana where Sam Forstog wins. He's a very handsome, I should say, fireman. And, he had AOC out there campaigning with him. He also had support from the bench and majority Dems, which is just more of like a center left kind of fighting moderates side of the party. Like they both got behind the same candidate, because he was the one that was kind of offering a vision that made sense for this moment. And I think he made sense for Montana. So, that's what you're seeing. It's going to be different in different places. And directionally, it looks good for Dems, but Iowa's going to be a huge challenge. Donald Trump won it by 12 points last time. And so that's going to be tough to win.
So, Peter, I know Tim mentioned that you have thoughts on California, and that has been incredibly strange to watch. But I also want your thoughts on sort of comparing where Democrats have their best chances in some of these uphill races. So, for example, Iowa as a better opportunity for them than, say, Texas. Where do you read they're going to lean in and have the most success over the next few months?
Yeah, look, I think last night was interesting because you've got two kinds of races Democrats need to win. And I will talk about Iowa, but you have New Jersey 7, which is a swing district where Tom Kean Jr. has been absent for almost 3 months with an unexplained medical issue. Rebecca Bennett won that nomination for the Democrats on a very sort of moderate affordability, mini Mikey Sherrill type message. So the Democrats have to win those swing seats, which are vanishingly, they don't exist that much anymore. There's only like 20 of them. But they do also have to win in places like Iowa to take back the Senate, especially if the Graham Plattner candidacy turns into something of a train wreck. Their campaign is putting out defensive internal polling today. Not a good sign. But yeah, Tim is right. Donald Trump's approval rating in Iowa is somewhere between 43 and 48%, which is better than the national average. The thing that's going for Democrats, I think, there that also helps, I think, in Georgia, is that you have both a governor candidate and a Senate candidate, also maybe Ohio also, where they're just both good and they're going to help each other out on the ballot. Josh Turek, who won the nomination in Iowa last night from Council Bluffs, he invokes that John Edwards 2004 message, there are two Americas. He doesn't talk about cultural issues at all. Federal races different than statewide. Rob Sand his polling is very good, but hopefully they'll be able to help each other out against two candidates. If you're a Democrat, that seem pretty right wing. Although Ashley Hinson is also probably the candidate that Republicans wanted on the Senate side.
Well, Peter Hamby and John Nichols, you're both sticking around with me. Tim Miller, good to see you, and thank you.